He visited the graves every morning for 9 years, weeping over a daughter the world believed was dead. What he didn't know, she was alive, watching him from the shadows, stolen by her own mother and raised to believe her father was a monster. When she returned under a false name to discover the truth, 2 thugs grabbed her on the street, and in the moment he saved her life, everything he thought he knew shattered. This is the story of how a daughter came back from the dead and how that single whisper, "I'm alive," changed everything. Before we dive into this heartbreaking story, you need to hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to witness is a mafia boss discovering his dead daughter has been alive for 9 years, and the moment he realizes the truth will absolutely destroy you. Trust me, you don't want to miss how one girl's search for her father becomes the most dangerous revelation in New York's criminal underworld. Now, let's begin. Every morning at precisely 7:30 a.m., Mike Jones performed the same ritual. He drove his black Mercedes to St. Michael's Cemetery in Lower Manhattan, parked in the same spot beneath the oak tree, and walked the worn path to 2 graves positioned side by side beneath a stone angel. Rachel Marie Jones, beloved wife and mother, 1985 to 2016. Paige Elizabeth Jones, our angel, forever 7, 2009 to 2016. Mike knelt between them, placing white chrysanthemums, Paige's favorite flowers, on both graves. Then he did something that would have shocked the hundreds of men who answered to him, who feared his name, who'd built fortunes on his word. He wept, not quiet, dignified tears, full, body-shaking sobs of a man whose entire world had been ripped away 9 years ago in a car accident that took his wife and daughter and left him with nothing but graves to visit and memories that wouldn't fade. "Morning, baby girl," he whispered, his hand flat against Paige's headstone. "Daddy's here. I'm always here." 50 yards away, hidden behind the cemetery's oldest oak tree, Paige Jones watched her father cry. She'd been coming here for 2 weeks ever since she'd returned to New York after her mother's death, documenting his morning ritual through the lens of cheap binoculars she'd bought at a pawn shop, learning the rhythms of his grief, trying to reconcile this broken man with the monster her mother had described. "Your father is dangerous," Rachel had told her over and over during the 9 years they'd spent hiding in small towns across America. "He's violent, controlling. If he ever found us, he'd hurt us. That's why we had to disappear. That's why you can never contact him." But the man Paige watched now didn't look dangerous. He looked destroyed. "I miss you so much," Mike's voice carried across the quiet cemetery. "I dream about you every night. Still hear your laugh. Still see your face. God. Paige, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. Should have been there." Paige's hand pressed against her mouth, muffling a sob, because she wasn't dead. She was standing right here, and the man crying over an empty grave had no idea. Okay, real question. If you discovered your parent had been mourning your death for 9 years while you were actually alive, would you A. reveal yourself immediately, investigate first to make sure it's safe, or C. run away and never look back? Drop your answer in the comments, because Paige is about to make a choice that changes everything. 6 months earlier, everything Paige thought she knew had shattered. Rachel Jones had been dying of pancreatic cancer in a hospice in Portland, Oregon. Paige, 16 years old and terrified of losing the only parent she'd ever really known, sat holding her mother's hand when Rachel finally told the truth. "I need to tell you something," Rachel whispered, her voice weak. "About your father. About the accident." "Mom, don't. Save your strength." "There was no accident, Paige. I staged it." Paige's world tilted. "What?" "I took you. Paid someone to fake our deaths, burned bodies, dental records, everything. I let Mike think we died because I was terrified of him. Of his world. The violence, the danger, the constant fear. I thought I was protecting you. You kidnapped me? I saved you." Rachel's grip tightened. "Or at least, I thought I was. But these past years, hiding, running, keeping you from your family. Paige, I don't know anymore if I did the right thing. Did he hurt you? Did he hurt me?" Rachel's silence was answer enough. "Oh my God," Paige breathed. "He never hurt us, did he? He loved you so much. You were his entire world. But his life, Paige, the mafia, the violence, the enemies. I couldn't handle it. I was weak and selfish, and I destroyed his life to save mine." Tears ran down Rachel's hollow cheeks. "You need to know the truth. You need to decide for yourself who he is." Rachel died 3 days later, leaving Paige with that confession and a box hidden in the back of a closet. Inside, newspaper clippings about the fatal accident that killed Rachel and Paige Jones, fake IDs under different names, documentation of payments to a mortician who specialized in creating untraceable bodies for people who wanted to disappear, and photos, dozens of photos of a younger Mike with a little girl who looked exactly like Paige, both of them laughing, happy, safe. Paige had spent 3 months processing that information before making her decision: return to New York under a false identity and discover who Mike Jones really was. If he was the monster Rachel described, she'd know and could disappear again. If he wasn't, well, she'd figure that out when the time came. "Sophie Reed, you can go in now." Paige, now using the identity of Sophie Reed, a real person currently teaching English in Australia whose documentation Paige had carefully forged, stood and entered the office of Samantha Wells, coordinator of Richetti Enterprises' Youth Restoration Program. The program was Mike's pet project, community outreach for at-risk teens, funded by his legitimate business holdings. It was perfect cover for Paige to get close without raising suspicions. "Your resume is impressive," Samantha said, reviewing papers. 3 years volunteer experience with troubled youth. Degree in social work from Portland State. All lies. Carefully constructed. But Paige had learned during 9 years of hiding how to become someone else. "I'm passionate about giving kids second chances," Paige said, which was true. She just didn't mention her own story. Samantha looked up, and her eyes caught on Paige's face, lingering on her green eyes, the small scar above her left eyebrow. "Have we met before?" Paige's heart hammered. "I don't think so. You look familiar." Samantha shook her head. "Anyway, the position is yours, if you want it. You'd be working directly with teens in our after-school program, helping with homework, mentoring, being a positive influence." "I'd love to." "Great. You start Monday. I should mention this is Mr. Jones's personal project. He's very involved, visits the program regularly. You'll likely meet him." Paige kept her face neutral. "That's fine." But inside, her pulse raced. She was about to step into her father's world. The Richetti Enterprises building was a 40-story glass tower in Midtown Manhattan. The Youth Restoration Program occupied the 3rd floor, bright, welcoming, filled with teenagers who ranged from genuinely at-risk to court-ordered attendees working off community service. Paige spent her first week observing, helping, getting to know the routines, and watching for Mike. She saw him on Wednesday. He stepped off the elevator wearing an immaculate charcoal suit, flanked by 2 men security. Obviously, the teens recognized him immediately, their posture straightening, respect mixed with wariness. "Mr. Jones!" Samantha approached with a smile. "I didn't know you were visiting today. Wanted to see how the new session is going?" Mike's voice was deep, controlled, the voice of a man used to command. "Any problems?" "None. Actually, I hired someone new. Sophie Reed. She's working with the homework assistance group." Mike's eyes scanned the room, landing on Paige. Their gazes locked. For 3 seconds, maybe 5, they stared at each other across 30 feet of community center. Paige felt her breath catch, her heart slam against her ribs. Recognition flickered in Mike's eyes, something about her face pulling at his memory. But then it passed, and he nodded politely before turning back to Samantha. "Keep up the good work." He left, and Paige had to sit down before her shaking legs betrayed her. Over the next 2 weeks, Paige observed Mike carefully. She saw him interact with employees, demanding but fair, expecting excellence but rewarding it. She heard how people spoke about him when he wasn't around. Respect, some fear, but also loyalty. She saw him with the teenagers in the program, patient, surprisingly gentle with kids who reminded him of his own rough childhood. And every morning, she followed him to the cemetery and watched him cry. Nothing about Mike Jones suggested the monster Rachel had described. which meant either Rachel had lied about everything or Mike was an exceptional actor. Paige needed proof. The Richetti Enterprises storage facility was in a warehouse in Queens, climate-controlled, secure, holding archived documents and personal items for executives. Paige accessed it using her employee keycard, which had more clearance than she'd expected, and a forged requisition form claiming she needed old program records. The security guard waved her through without questioning. Inside, rows of labeled boxes stretched in industrial shelves. Paige found Mike's section. Personal. M. Jones. Do not discard. Her hand shook as she opened the first box. Children's books. Goodnight Moon. Where the Wild Things Are. With inscriptions. To Paige, love Daddy. The second box. Toys. A stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. Plastic dinosaurs. A tea set. Items Paige recognized with the sharp clarity of childhood memory. The third box. Drawings. Crayon masterpieces signed Paige in uneven letters. Report cards from elementary school. A Mother's Day card with I love you mommy written inside. Mike had kept everything. The fourth box. DVDs. Labeled with dates from 9 years ago. Paige found a laptop in the facility office, inserted the first disc, and pressed play. Home video, the 14th of July 2015. The screen showed a kitchen bright, spacious, homey. 7-year-old Paige stood on a stool at the counter, covered in flour, laughing. Okay, baby girl, what's the most important rule of pizza making? Mike's voice came from behind the camera. More cheese, little Paige declared. That's my girl. Mike laughed, a warm, genuine sound. Paige hadn't heard from him in the cemetery. But seriously, what did we say about the dough? Be patient? Let it rest? Exactly. Good things take time. The camera moved closer as Mike joined her at the counter, his hands guiding hers as they rolled dough. Little Paige was concentrating hard, her tongue poking out. I'm gonna be the best pizza maker ever, Daddy. You already are, sweetheart. You already are. The video showed 30 more minutes of cooking, laughing, flour fights, and obvious adoration between father and daughter. At the end, they sat eating pizza together, and little Paige said, Daddy, are you gonna love me forever? Forever and ever and ever? Even when I'm old and gray and can't remember my own name, I'll remember how much I love you. The video ended. Paige sat in the storage facility, tears streaming down her face, surrounded by evidence of a father who'd loved his daughter completely. Rachel had lied. About everything. Mike Jones wasn't a monster. He was a man who'd lost everything and spent 9 years grieving. And Paige was the proof that his daughter was still alive. Can we all just acknowledge that I am not emotionally prepared for this? If you're watching a girl discover her dead mom lied about everything and you're not subscribed, please hit that button right now because this story is about to get so much more intense. Also comment, Team tell him immediately or Team keep investigating? Let me know what you'd do. Okay, back to the heartbreak. Mike Jones didn't become the head of one of New York's most powerful crime families by ignoring his instincts. And his instincts were screaming, Vincent, what do you know about Sophie Reed? Mike asked his security chief, Vincent Caruso, who'd been his friend for 30 years and Paige's godfather when she was alive. The new girl in the youth program? Not much. Background check came back clean. Why? Something about her. Mike couldn't articulate it. Her eyes, green like Paige's. Vincent finished quietly. I noticed too. But boss, that doesn't mean, I know, coincidence, but run a deeper check anyway. Everything, where she came from, who she really is. Vincent nodded. I'll be thorough. The deep background check on Sophie Reed revealed a girl who existed on paper but barely in reality. Born in Portland, Oregon. Degree from Portland State. Volunteer work at youth centers. But no digital footprint before 3 years ago. No social media from her teenage years. No childhood photos. No permanent address before college. It's clean, Vincent reported, but it's too clean. Like someone built an identity rather than lived one. Mike studied Sophie's employee photo. Green eyes. Small scar above her left eyebrow. Age listed as 19, which would make her born in 2006. Paige had been born in 2009. Would be 16 now if she were alive. Could be someone changed her birth records, Mike mused. Boss, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that girl's eyes are the exact shade of my daughter's. She has a scar in the same place Paige got one when she fell off playground equipment. And she's working in my company, watching things carefully, asking quiet questions about my family. You think someone sent her? Albanian? Russian? Maybe. Or. Mike stopped himself. The thought was too impossible, too painful to voice. Keep digging, and increase security around her. If someone's using her against us, I want to know. Paige noticed the increased attention immediately. There was a car that followed her home from work. Security cameras in the program office repositioned to watch her desk. Vincent Caruso visiting the program and asking Samantha casual questions about the new hire. They were investigating her. Which meant Paige had to make a choice, reveal herself now, before they discovered her secret, or disappear again. She chose option 3. Speed up the investigation and find irrefutable proof of who Mike Jones really was before making any decisions. Paige left work at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, walking toward the subway station through the November cold. She didn't notice the 2 men following her until they'd closed the distance to 10 feet. Sophie Reed? One of them called. Paige turned. Both men were large, dangerous-looking. Eastern European accents. Do I know you? You work for Mike Jones. We have questions about his business. Alarm bells rang. Paige stepped back. I don't know anything about his business. I work with kids. You know enough. The first man grabbed her arm. Come with us. We just want to talk. Paige had 9 years of experience running and hiding. Rachel had also taught her basic self-defense. In case we're ever found, she stomped on the man's instep, twisted out of his grip, and ran. She made it 15 feet before the second man caught her, his arm wrapping around her waist, lifting her off the ground. Stop fighting, little girl. Then Mike Jones appeared. Paige didn't see where he came from. One moment she was struggling. The next Mike was there, moving with frightening efficiency. He grabbed the man holding Paige, twisted his arm with a sharp crack, and threw him into the wall of the building. The man crumpled. The second attacker pulled a knife. Mike disarmed him in 2 moves, a strike to the wrist that sent the blade clattering away, a knee to the solar plexus that dropped him to the pavement. The entire fight lasted maybe 30 seconds. Mike turned to Paige, his hands immediately checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? Paige stared up at him, shaking. No, I'm okay. Their eyes locked. Mike's breath caught. Up close, in the streetlight, the resemblance was undeniable. Those eyes, that scar, the shape of her face. Who are you? Mike whispered. Before Paige could answer, Vincent appeared with 2 more security personnel. Boss, we need to move. NYPD is 3 minutes out. Mike wrapped his coat around Paige. She was shaking from shock and guided her toward his car. You're coming with me. Don't argue. Paige, stunned and terrified, didn't. Doctor. Eleanor Hayes ran a private medical clinic in Brooklyn that catered to clients who preferred discretion. She examined Paige in a clean, well-equipped exam room while Mike paced outside. Bruised ribs, minor abrasions, Eleanor reported. She's lucky. Could have been much worse. She fought back, Mike said. There was pride in his voice. Knew what to do. Eleanor looked at him carefully. Mike, that scar above her eyebrow, how did she say she got it? She said she doesn't remember. She was young. Eleanor had been Mike's doctor for 20 years. She'd treated Paige's childhood injuries. She recognized that scar. Mike, that's the same scar Paige had, from the playground fall when she was 5. I know, Mike said quietly. And her eyes. I know. What are you going to do? Find out who she really is. And why she's here. In the exam room, Paige sat wrapped in Mike's coat, which smelled like expensive cologne and something distinctly him, trying to process what had just happened. He'd saved her life. Moved to protect her without hesitation. Rachel's words echoed. He's dangerous. Violent. But the violence Paige had just witnessed was protection, not cruelty. Mike had been terrifying because he was defending her. The door opened. Mike entered. His expression unreadable. Who sent you? He asked bluntly. No one. Who are you working for? Albanian? Russian? If someone's using you to get to me, I'm not working for anyone. Then explain the coincidences. Mike's voice was controlled, but barely. Your eyes, your scar, your age, if you're lying about your birth year, the fact that you're working in my company, watching my routines. Who are you? Paige opened her mouth to tell him this was it, the moment to confess. Vincent burst in. Boss? Problem. The 2 Albanians are gone. Someone extracted them before we could. Mike cursed. Surveillance footage? Already pulled. Professional job. They knew our security protocols. Mike looked at Paige, his expression torn between suspicion and something else. Hope, maybe, or fear of hope. We're going to my office. You're going to tell me everything, and if you lie to me again, I will know. Okay, real talk. Mike just saved Paige's life without knowing who she is, and now he's demanding answers. Should Paige A. Tell him everything immediately, B. Keep lying to protect herself, or C. Tell partial truth and see how he reacts? Drop your vote in the comments because this next conversation is going to WRECK everyone involved. Mike's office was on the 40th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, dark wood furniture, expensive art. The room of a man with power and taste. Vincent stood by the door. Mike sat behind his desk. Paige sat across from him, feeling like she was on trial, which, in a way, she was. Let's start simple, Mike said. What's your real name? Paige hesitated. I can have Vincent run fingerprints, DNA tests, facial recognition, but I'd rather you just tell me. Sophie Reed is. It's a borrowed identity. Borrowed. Mike's expression darkened. From who? A real person. She's in Australia. I needed documentation to get into the country. Why? I needed to find someone. Who? Paige looked at Vincent, then back at Mike. You. Silence filled the office. Why would you need to find me? Mike's voice was carefully controlled. Because my mother told me you were dangerous, that you'd hurt us if you found us. She said we had to run, to hide, that you were violent and controlling, and I should be terrified of you. Paige's voice shook. But when she was dying, she admitted she lied. About everything. And I needed to know the truth. Mike stood slowly. Who was your mother? Rachel. The name hit Mike like a physical blow. He gripped the desk, his face going white. Rachel Jones? Yes. Rachel is dead. She died 9 years ago. Mike stopped, his breath coming in gasps. No, you're lying. You're trying to manipulate me. I'm not lying. Paige pulled out her wallet, extracted a photo Rachel in a hospice bed. Gone and dying, Paige beside her. On the back, Rachel had written, "Tell him I'm sorry." Mike stared at the photo. When? 6 months ago. Cancer. And you, who are you? Paige stood, her hands shaking. This was it. The moment that would change everything or destroy the fragile possibility of reunion. She took me, Paige whispered. She faked our deaths, paid people to create bodies, stage an accident. She kidnapped me and ran. I've been alive this whole time. Mike's face crumpled. No. She told me you were dangerous. I believed her. But then I came back, and I watched you. At the cemetery. At work. I found the videos you kept. The toys. Everything you saved. And I realized she lied. Who are you? Mike's voice broke. Paige stepped closer. In the office lights, with tears running down her face, the resemblance was undeniable. Daddy, it's me. I'm Paige. Mike Jones feared mafia boss, ruthless businessman, man who'd ordered deaths without blinking, collapsed into his chair and sobbed. Vincent, standing by the door, saw the truth written in Paige's face, and his own eyes filled with tears. Dolcezza? He breathed, using his old nickname for her. Little sweet one? Paige turned to him. Zio Vincent. Vincent crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, crying, We thought you were dead. We mourned you. I know, I'm so sorry. Mike stood on shaking legs, approaching carefully as though Paige might vanish if he moved too fast. His hands reached out, touching her face, tracing the scar above her eyebrow, the shape of her cheekbones, her jaw. You're real, he whispered. You're alive. I'm alive. She took you. Rachel took you and let me think you were dead for 9 years. She was scared. She made terrible choices. But she was scared. I've been visiting an empty grave. Mike's voice rose. I've been crying over nothing while you were alive somewhere. Thinking I was a monster. I don't think that anymore. I've been watching you. I know who you really are. Mike pulled her into his arms carefully at first, then desperately tight, as though he could make up for 9 lost years in a single embrace. I'm never letting you go again, he whispered against her hair. Never. The reunion lasted approximately 15 minutes before Vincent's phone buzzed with an alert that shifted everything into crisis mode. Boss, we have a problem. Albanian surveillance spotted your car at the clinic. They're asking questions about the girl. Mike's expression hardened immediately. How much do they know? Unknown, but if they figure out who she is. Vincent didn't need to finish. If Mike's enemies discovered his supposedly dead daughter was alive, she'd become the biggest target in New York. Mike turned to Paige. We need to move you. Now. Somewhere secure until we can neutralize the threat. Move me where? My home in Brooklyn. The old house. It's fortified security, cameras, armed guards. You'll be safe there. The house where we lived? You kept it? Mike looked at her with raw vulnerability. I couldn't sell it. Couldn't change anything. It's exactly as it was when I thought you died. The house was a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, elegant, understated, expensive. Mike hadn't lived there in 9 years, maintaining it through a property management company, but never entering. Until now. He unlocked the front door, and Paige stepped into a home frozen in time. Photos on walls, her school pictures, family portraits, candid shots of happier times. Rachel's reading glasses still on the hall table. Paige's backpack hanging by the door. You really didn't change anything. Paige breathed. I couldn't. It felt like erasing you. Mike assigned 4 guards to exterior security and activated a sophisticated alarm system. Then he led Paige upstairs to her old bedroom. The door opened on a space that made Paige's throat tighten. Her books on shelves, her clothes in the closet, her stuffed animals arranged on the bed exactly as she'd left them. I come here sometimes, Mike admitted, when the grief gets too heavy. I sit in here and remember you. Paige walked to her old bed, picked up Mr. Hopscotch, the rabbit from the Coney Island video. I remembered him. When Rachel was dying, I had flashes of memories. This rabbit, that pizza video, I thought they were dreams. They were real. All of it was real. They sat on Paige's childhood bed, father and daughter, together for the first time in 9 years, and began the painful process of filling in lost time. I'm going to need everyone to take a deep breath because this story is destroying me emotionally. If you're watching a father and daughter reunion in a preserved bedroom and you're not subscribed, I'm judging you through the screen. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and comment. Are you crying? Because I'm absolutely crying. Okay, one more chapter, let's finish this. Over the next 3 days, several things happened. Vincent ran DNA tests, confirmed. Paige was absolutely Mike's daughter. The Albanian threat was assessed, serious, but containable. Samantha Wells was brought into confidence. She cried for an hour. And Mike and Paige began the hard work of becoming family again. It wasn't easy. There were arguments about Rachel's choices, about the 9 lost years, about Mike's dangerous world. Paige had moments of panic where she wondered if she'd made a mistake. Mike had moments of rage at Rachel that threatened to consume him, but they kept talking, kept trying. On the 4th morning, Mike took Paige back to St. Michael's Cemetery. They stood before the graves, one real Rachel, one empty Paige. I should have the headstone removed, Mike said. Leave it, Paige replied. That version of me did die. The scared little girl who believed her mother's lies. I'm different now. Who are you now? I'm Paige Jones, your daughter. And I'm not running anymore. Mike looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not the 7-year-old he'd lost, but the 16-year-old survivor who'd found her way back. My world is dangerous, he said seriously. If you stay, if we do this publicly, you'll be a target. Every enemy I have will try to use you against me. You'll need constant security, limited freedom, permanent awareness of threats. That's not a normal life. I've never had a normal life. Mom made sure of that. You could leave. I'd give you money, protection, help you start somewhere safe. I don't want to leave, Paige interrupted. I want to know my father. I want my family back. I want to stop running. Mike's eyes filled with tears. Then you'll have it. All of it. But on one condition. What? You promise me you'll never hide again. No more fake names. No more running. No more secrets. If something scares you, you tell me. If someone threatens you, you tell me. You're my daughter, and I protect what's mine. I promise. They stood at the graves, one real, one false, and made peace with the past. 3 months later, Paige sat in Mike's penthouse, doing homework under the watchful eye of Vincent, who'd resumed his role as protective godfather with enthusiasm. How's calculus treating you? Vincent asked, bringing her coffee. Terribly. I'm convinced math hates me. Your father was terrible at math too. But don't tell him I said that. Paige laughed, a sound that still made Mike pause every time he heard it, marveling that his daughter was alive and laughing in his home. The Albanian threat had been neutralized through strategic displays of force and carefully negotiated territory agreements. The criminal underworld now knew. Paige Jones was alive, under her father's protection, and anyone who touched her would face consequences too severe to risk. Paige attended private school with security detail. She had therapy twice a week to process the trauma of her childhood. She and Mike had family dinners where they slowly learned each other again, filling in 9 years of separation with stories, memories, and painful honesty. It wasn't perfect. Paige still had nightmares. Mike still struggled with rage at Rachel's betrayal. But they were trying. One evening, Mike came home to find Paige watching the old pizza video. Still your favorite? He asked, sitting beside her. Always. It's proof that Mom's stories were lies. That you love me. I never stopped loving you. Even when I thought you were dead, I loved you. Paige leaned against his shoulder. I know. That's why I came back. Mike showed her his new tattoo, her name and birthday on his wrist, permanently marked. So I never forget, he explained. What I lost and what I got back. Paige showed him her matching one, Daddy's girl. Mom was wrong about a lot, Paige said quietly. But she was right that your world is dangerous. Yes. And you chose to stay anyway. Because you're my father, and I'm done running. Outside, New York City glittered dangerous, beautiful, and finally, home. 1 year later, Paige stood at her bedroom window, watching the city wake up. She was 17 now, settling into her identity as Paige Jones, Mike's daughter, returned from the dead, no longer hiding. The criminal underworld had accepted her presence. Some saw her as leverage. Others saw her as untouchable, protected by Mike's reputation and Vincent's loyalty. Paige saw herself as a survivor who'd found her way home. She still visited the cemetery, sometimes standing at her own empty grave, thinking about the girl who died there and Rachel's lies and the woman who'd risen from that false death. Ready for school? Mike called from downstairs. 5 minutes. Paige grabbed her backpack, now filled with textbooks instead of fake IDs and emergency cash, and headed down to breakfast. Mike stood in the kitchen, making coffee, looking more relaxed than he had in years. Finding Paige alive had healed something broken in him, though the scars of 9 lost years would never fully fade. Big test today? Mike asked. Chemistry. I'm prepared. That's my girl. Vincent arrived for his daily security briefing, saw Paige eating breakfast, and smiled. Morning Dolcezza. Morning Zio. This was their new normal, dangerous but stable, protected but present, built on truth instead of lies. Paige finished breakfast, kissed her father's cheek, and headed out with her security detail to face another day. She was Paige Jones, Mike's daughter, no longer dead, no longer running. Finally, miraculously, home. And that is how a daughter came back from the dead and changed everything. If you made it through this entire emotional roller coaster without subscribing, I'm genuinely impressed by your self-control. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling me, would you have revealed yourself immediately? Or would you have watched and investigated like Paige did? Also, did Rachel's letter make you understand her choices, or are you Team Mike on the unforgivable betrayal? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, may all your impossible reunions be this beautiful. Bye!